Trying to help it to be a little more on the round size. Okay, so that's not too bad. That's a decent size. Hello, howdy, and welcome back to my kitchen. I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden homesteader. Today is, well, it's not Taco Tuesday, it's actually a Monday, but I'm going to make some burritos, and for that, I need wraps. I have found, I don't know why, but the burrito-sized wraps at the store are super expensive, and you only get like a couple of them. I feel like the bags are just not that full, so guess what? We're making our own today. So, I'll put in about 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt. And, let's see. I put some sugar in mine. I was trying to recreate a recipe for, I don't know if anyone has been to Cafe Rio, but they have really good wraps. They've got like a touch of sweetness to it. It's really weird. I don't know what's in there that's making it sweet. So I started putting sugar in mine. This is totally optional. It does not need to have sugar. Okay. Then I'm going to do 3 cups of flour. And then I haven't used this lard in a while, this brand, so I don't know. It does not come marked. Well, that's just lovely. I need a measuring cup. Okay, there we go. So, let's do this the old-fashioned way. So I don't normally like to buy my lard in this format, although it was cheaper per unit, so... But I like to get it in the tubs because then I feel like it's a little easier to scoop it out, and I feel like it doesn't just like bleed through the paper and make a a greasy mess everywhere. If you know, you know. Okay, so I'll try to get out 1/3 of a cup. Okay, 1/3 of a cup. It's a little generous. And it depends on how you do your flour. If you are kind of like me and you just do a dip and swish, whatever it's called, then you might have slightly more flour and it's okay to put in a little bit more lard. Okay, I got clean hands. I'm going to kind of mix everything up underneath just to get it a little more homogeneous, and then I'm going to cut in the lard. And you don't have to use your hands for this, but sometimes it's really good to get a feel for what stuff is supposed to feel like, so then you can feel how it's changing at the different moments. So especially when you're kneading. So yeah, I like to knead with a machine when I can, but for this there's something about the way it feels that you just need to have that tactile feeling. So I will have the links below that I used to get this recipe. So I think from Simply Mama Cooks is where I got the actual recipe. So the 3 cups of flour and all that. She doesn't put sugar in. Sometimes she does have recipes for other fats. So if you're using butter or if you're going to use a liquid oil, the amounts do change a little bit because of the water content. But I used Views from the Road. I think that's the channel. She has a really good walkthrough on making the tortilla dough, because her grandmother was actually there. So she was learning like right from her abuela. So if you don't have that resource, that's actually a really good channel to watch, because you can hear her saying, oh, it's not wet enough, or it needs to be stickier, or, you didn't knead it long enough. So it's really good feedback to sort of see this other person learning. Okay, so now I have 1 cup of, this is really hot tap water. It's just from the tap water. So I'm going to just get it going. It may or may not take all of it. You just kind of have to get it going. Add what's needed. This is again where it helps to feel the dough and feel it come together. I still have some wet spots, or dry spots, I mean. Okay, I think my water must have cooled down. It feels a little different today. Oh well. At this point, I'm going to knead it in the bowl and try to get it to become a little less sticky and shaggy. It will become less sticky and shaggy, so try to not put too much water in, but don't just keep doing the back and forth with, oh, more water, more flour, more water, more flour. Just kind of This is one of those weird doughs that it's not a traditional dough. Obviously, it's not a traditional white person dough. So, you know, going based on what we know, it's very different. So just stick with it. Okay, mine probably did get a little bit too much water. Also, the water wasn't hot enough. So you can see how it's really sticky. This is actually a little extra sticky. Okay, I am going to add a little bit of flour because this is a lot stickier than it's supposed to be. So even though it's very sticky, it does have a very elastic quality to it. And that's what we're looking for in this dough. It's kind of that strange elastic quality that you don't get right away from a traditional bread dough. I'm just kind of picking it up from the bottom and then just pushing it inside. So I feel like that is coming together. I'm going to clean out the bowl, make some space. Okay, different ways to knead. This is all personal preference. You pick one that will work for you. So I'll show you my favorite one at the end, but you pick it up and push, pick it up and push, then turn. Pick it up, push, pick it up, push. Now you can do a one-handed one where you're kind of going around in circles this way. And then I like to do like a two-handed one, but where I'm pushing the dough. And I feel like this, you gotta sort of put your whole body into it, but I feel like I get twice the kneading action for half the time. But you're gonna want to go for at least a good 8 to 10 minutes on this. So get comfortable, put a podcast on or music or whatever, and just go with it. So I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of sticky right now. So I'll show you how it looks at the end of the kneading, okay? I will probably just speed through this or clip to the end. Okay, so been just under 8 minutes, and it's really starting to come together now at this point to where I need it to be. I'm also really out of breath, so pardon me. So it has cleaned my hands, mostly. I still have a little bit of stuff just sort of stuck on the tops, but the dough isn't really coming into contact with the top. But it has become a lot smoother. It's a lot less, it's hard to describe, it's not elastic anymore, but it's very like pillowy soft. Think Pillsbury Doughboy soft. It still feels wet, and it has a sticky feel to it, but it's not sticky. So I don't know, it's really hard to describe that, but see, when I grab it, it doesn't stick. It's also really nice and smooth. So I'm probably there, honestly. I have found that, there's that hurt spot I keep running into. I have found that kneading is key for this dough. If you don't knead it enough, and I don't know if this is particular for this recipe or other recipes, but I have found that, like, when I did this recipe the first time, honestly, I didn't knead it that much because I hadn't watched that Views from the Road one, so I didn't know what benchmarks I was looking for. And when I cooked it up, it kind of came out, I hate to say it, but it tasted like pie crust. So it's really important to knead it until you get that really soft, supple texture. It's also important that it starts off sticky. So I'm going to, I might get a better bowl, clean bowl. I'm going to put it in a clean bowl, and then I will show you the next step. Okay, let's get this in the bowl, nice and clean. Okay, and then get a little bit of lard. I should have done this before I put it in the bowl. You want to pat it all over the top. That will help prevent it from drying out, because it needs to sit and rest. The longer you let it sit and rest, the softer it will be and the easier it will be to shape for the next set. You could put this into balls right now if you needed to cut out some time and let it rest as balls, and then you kind of cut out a rest step, but this is just the way I do it. I've got plenty of time this morning. I don't need this until dinner. So I'll just let it sit and rest for however long I think it needs. Okay, so I'm going to have it covered, and it just needs to sit and rest at this point. And I will bring you back. I will also bring you back for the other things that I'm making. I'm going to be making a corn salsa. I probably won't show you the chicken because honestly I'm just using an old El Paso kit, but I'll be making a corn salsa, so I can bring you for that. And then, you know, if you really want a recipe for doing the meat and the cilantro lime rice, I could do those at some point, but it won't happen today because, like I said, I'm just using an old El Paso kit. But I will show you how everything turns out. Obviously, I'll show you all of these steps because this is what the video is about. It's about making these burrito wraps. Everything else is kind of like, oh, I'll show you how to make a nice corn salsa. Corn salsa is awesome for winter salsas, so I thought I would show you now. While my wraps are resting, I'm going to make corn salsa. Now, the order of operations is you should make your corn salsa early in the day so it's got all day to marinate and it'll taste really good. The wraps can be made later in the day. They don't need as much resting time as I am giving them. I will be doing a 1-can salsa. I have made up to 3 cans and I just use a whole onion. So I will just use half for this, cut up nice and fine. I have some of those mild Anaheims from my Aerogarden. I've got some cilantro that I've got growing up in another Aerogarden. I've got some lime juice. If you have fresh lime, go for it. Then you can put the zest in, especially if you're not a cilantro fan. Lime zest is awesome. And then I also have a little citric acid because I do find that this bottled lime juice, I don't know why, but it doesn't seem very acidic. And then, of course, salt and pepper. Oops, keep putting that in the wrong spot. Just sharpened my knife and it's like awesome. So, corn salsa. It's probably not authentic, but it's kind of like the Chipotle version. I don't know if you've ever gone to the Chipotle restaurant. This is kind of similar, but we've sort of put our own spins on it over time. We like it a little spicier. Sometimes we'll add in the Tabasco, the Chipotle Tabasco, because it gives it a nice smoky heat. So we've kind of made our own changes to it, and you know, I'll make more or less depending on what we're using it for. But it's also a great winter salsa. Technically, I think the original recipe, I'll try to link it below, does call for like frozen or fresh corn, and you can also roast it if you want. So you can make like a fire roasted salsa with this same recipe. We have just adapted it over time to be kind of like our winter salsa. So when you don't have tomatoes, for easy access to cheap tomatoes, let's put it that way, tomatoes in winter are kind of pricey. This is a really good go-to salsa. It kind of ticks most of the boxes, and it's got that nice bright flavor that you want when you're having like a burrito or a taco or a wrap of some sort. So we really enjoy it in the winter. We also enjoy it in the summer too, but you know, when your garden is pushing out tomato after tomato, generally we just go for the fresh tomato salsa. Everything else is just by taste. So get a bunch of salt in. Probably start with about a teaspoon, maybe not quite. Probably put in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of that, and I'll put in a little. No measurements on this. It's like a little dusting. A little goes a very long way, so go really easy on the citric acid if you're going to use it. And then, forgot my pepper. Start with probably about a teaspoon as well. And we will stir it up. And then it's important to taste because then you don't have to worry about trying to fix things later when it's in a different container. This is in a bowl. It's kind of easy to add more stuff to it. Add a little bit more of this. A touch more salt. I always undersalt, so we'll get something to taste with. Always taste with what you're going to eat it with, but I'm not going to eat a burrito just to taste this, so I'll just taste with a taco chip. Okay, let's get this taste. I like to grab some of the juice from the bottom, that way I know if the salt is right, because the salt will be dissolved in the juice. It's good, but definitely needs more salt. like I say, I always undersalt things. Definitely needs a little more acid. This is the better way to up the acid, is to just add the citric acid. But the lime juice does add some of the flavor as well. So I try to keep that balanced. Okay, let's give this another taste. See how it goes. Definitely on point for the acid, so I'm gonna add a little more salt. Now, at this point when I feel like I've got it close to dialed in, this is when I add everything else. Because I kind of want my salt to be there before I start distracting the flavors with other things. So, if you like cilantro, now's your chance. If you want some of that smoky Tabasco, now's your chance. 1 can of salsa, you probably want, what is that, not even a quarter of a cup. It's probably about 2 to 3 tablespoons. As much as you want. I would put more in, but that means I have to go get more. If you don't actually have citric acid, you can put in a vinegar to raise that acid level if you don't feel like your lime, bottled lime juice or bottled lemon juice is doing it for you. Alright, so we'll put in a little bit of that smoked Tabasco, just to give it a little extra zing and a little bit of smokiness. And like I said, you could always put in smoked paprika if you want to add more smoke to it. I'm adding a little bit of ground cumin. That was probably, I don't even think that was a quarter of a teaspoon, but just a little. It's kind of just the flavors you want. If you don't really like the cumin, you find it too strong, don't put it in. Okay, so it smells really good. I'm probably going to grab another chip and get a final taste test. And then I will get this in a covered container and put it in the fridge, and it'll just marinate for the rest of the day, and it'll be nice in time for dinner. Okay, let's give that a final taste. That's good. Okay. There we go. Corn salsa. So it's an awesome winter salsa. Uses just sort of pantry staples. You don't really have to have anything fresh. I could have put in dehydrated or freeze-dried cilantro. I have freeze-dried onion and pepper, so I wouldn't have even had to worry about that. It was canned corn. So that's pretty good. So I will let this marinate, and I will bring you back when it's time to move on to the next step for the wraps. I have let this rest for quite a while. I believe the minimum rest time should be about 20 minutes, so take that as you will. It's definitely worth resting it so that you can get, I don't know if you can see how nice and soft and supple this is, but you really want to let it rest so it'll relax, and that will make it easier to work. So I'm just going to pinch off pieces. I want 110 grams, I believe, to do a burrito. Close enough. So I'll just pinch these off and then I will shape them. I'm just using the lid to the container I'm going to put them in, just so they won't dry out, but also so I'm not getting my scale all wet or greasy. This is the first time making burrito sized ones, so I guess we will see how many I get from this batch. And really, I feel like every time you work with the dough, just let it have a rest period before moving on to the next step. So after I shape all these, I will again let it rest, probably for another hour or so, because I'm not in a hurry. I might be able to get 2 more. Let me see, 139. Ooh. Okay, well I'll probably just make them all slightly bigger then. So it was probably closer to 115 to divide it up, and it was 7 balls. Okay, so you can turn everything under, or I just like to put the thing down and just go in a circle. Okay, you really don't want to leave them exposed to the air because they will dry out. What I'm going to do is, again, I will take a little bit of lard and I will pat it on and put it in. Pat it on, put it in. This will prevent them from sticking, prevent them from drying out. There we go. So I'm just going to let that rest for a little longer, and then we will come back and roll them out. Ugh. Okay, it has been plenty of rest time. I think the optimum, or at least the least amount, is 20 minutes. So I have a bin of flour. I'm also using a different camera so I can show you the two different angles of how to roll it out and how to cook it at the same time. Got a rolling pin, and I got my well-rested dough. So let's see if we can get this out. There we go. Keep it covered while I'm not using it. Okay, so I want to press it in the flour. Kind of came out a little mangled. And then I want to press it. So I'm kind of leaving a little bit of an edge around it. Think of pizza crust, where you've got that edge going on. It will get rolled out, so it doesn't really matter, but this is kind of how I learned to do it, so that's just how I'm doing it. Alright, so I would like to use a decent amount of flour to prevent sticking, but I don't want to use an excessive amount of flour because the flour will kind of burn on the griddle, and that's just not pleasant. But you want enough to make sure it doesn't stick. Now, at every step of the way, you also want to be resting your dough. So once I get this kind of rolled out, I'm going to let it sit and rest for a minute before actually setting it on the griddle. Now I am heating up I've got a electric 22-inch griddle. It's got 2 heat zones. I'm heating both zones up to 400. So I could probably do 2 of these at the same time. Will I be able to roll out 2 at the same time? No. So I'm probably not going to use both zones, but I would heat them up on the off chance that it happens, and we'll go from there. So as you can see, it's kind of shrinking in. As I work it, it will shrink. So I don't want to overwork it. This is where resting comes in. So every time, once I get it to about the size I want, I'll let it rest before putting it on so that it won't shrink. So we want to get it pretty thin, but it doesn't have to be like exceedingly thin that you're going to rip it when you lift it up. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm working it quite a bit. I'm picking it up, I'm moving it around, I'm making sure it's not sticking. I'm giving it that chance to shrink in on itself if it wants to. And by continually turning it, I mean, it's not perfectly round. I don't know if you can really see that from the angle you're at, but it's not going to be perfectly round. But the more I can kind of keep moving it around, the more round it'll be. Okay, so that's a decent size. I think I want it a little bigger though. I can go a little bit bigger. And I am just hitting everything with my rolling pin. I have very messy cupboards. I don't have very much counter space. I don't have very much storage space. I am working with the best I've got. So, cleared off as much space as I could. Okay, now I'm probably going to let this sit for just a minute while I check the temperature of my griddle. And this will give it a chance to kind of relax a little bit, and it will help to prevent some shrinkage. This is also kind of my chance to see how it's kind of a little deformed here. I can kind of tug this into shape and let this shrink up a little bit and kind of help it to be a little more on the round size. Okay, so that's not too bad. That's a decent size. Here, kind of an odd angle, but that's how big it is. There you go. Okay, I think my griddle is hot. I am going to go and get the burrito, and I'm going to put it on, and we will cook this up. I'll lay it down gently in the hopes that it doesn't wrinkle on itself. There we go. So we want to look for it to dry up and start getting little bubbles. The key is to not overcook it. I will be cooking this again later if I do it like enchilada style. So sometimes we'll do burritos, we'll wrap them up, put sauce on it, and put it in the oven so that the cheese can crisp up a little. But this is looking really close. Okay, so I don't know if you can tell, but it does, I have lots of little bubbles, has kind of dried out on top. So I'm just going to do the flip. There you go. Now this side I probably want it to get a little bit brown, a couple little brown spots on the bottom. And then I'll flip it again to see if I can get a couple of little brown spots on top, and then I'm going to call it done. But it goes pretty quick. I mean, this is not sped up right now. I'll probably speed it up and just blow through the other 6 of them, but this first one I want you to see how it's doing. So I don't know if it makes a difference for whatever your setup is, but I have this on 400, and I think the highest it'll go is 450. So, but sometimes the first one is a sacrificial one as you try to figure out all the temperature settings. So I can see it's a little bit thin here. I must have stretched the dough just a little bit more, but give it just a little bit longer. And again, it's best to not overcook it, especially if you're going to be cooking it again, like if you're going to make quesadillas. There we go. This is what I'm looking for. Just the barest touch of brown going on. And you can pop the bubbles if they're really bugging you, but sometimes I'll push them down. That does mean it's cooking on the inside. So just a few more, maybe another 30 seconds or so. Actually, that looks like it's done. Okay, there we go. So, I don't know if you can see it. Let me show you. So on the stove here, I have a very large tea towel, and I'm just going to keep them wrapped up, and this will help keep them soft. It'll help them cool down slowly without drying out. So, next one. If you have helpers, you can do like a assembly line. But if you're by yourself, it's just one at a time, unfortunately. If it were smaller, I could probably do more, but these big ones seem like they take a little bit longer. The best is probably to get one going, roll out one, have it relaxed, roll out your next one, and then put your first one on. That way you're kinda one ahead. That way while one's cooking, you could be rolling out the next one, but I didn't do that. Okay. If you do feel like you have a little bit of excess flour, but you have rolled it out, just kind of brush it off, and it'll help prevent flour from, you know, burning. Nobody likes burnt flour. Okay, so like I said earlier, these are going to be for burritos tonight. I have a kit. We normally buy this kit and it's for making burrito bowls, but tonight I thought we would actually make burritos with it. It's a really nice kit. I normally make my own cilantro lime rice and just do like taco meat type chicken. You know, we'll just do chunks of chicken just cooked as with taco meat seasoning on it to make our burritos or tacos or whatever. But tonight we're using a kit. I think it's the last one we have of that variety. That is not in the freezer. Our local store will have them on sale, so we can get them for like 50 cents. Like, you can't go wrong with it. It's a pretty quick, cheap meal. So I have the homemade corn salsa is in the fridge. I've got that in the video showing you how I did that. I actually have some freeze-dried guacamole that I can use. So that'll be nice. Probably will skip the beans this time. I don't think we need them. There will be plenty of food to fill these up. So, okay. I did get a fold that happened here. It's okay. Just try to smooth it out as best I can. So I think this one's ready to go. I'm just gonna plop it right on. And get it going. There we go. So while that one is going, I'm going to try to get the next one started at least. So this is the way to assembly line. Is while that one's going, it's in an area where I can keep an eye on it, but I'm gonna get this one going, start rolling it out, and then let it rest for a little bit while I go flip the one that's on the griddle. So if you can't do the two at once without, risk burning, just do them one at a time. Okay, that looks pretty close. So I've been kind of doing this big flip like that. So I just gave it a flip. I'm going to keep rolling this out. So it's sticking to the counter here. That's why it's getting this odd shape. So I want to make sure I get some on the counter as well. And I can also sort of tug it into shape a little bit to help it stay around. And don't be afraid to not go all the way. Okay? If it helps the shape to just go part of the way. I like to go from the middle up and then the middle down. Kind of feels like it spreads it a little more evenly. You can also tug it a little to help it get round. Go back and give this a flip. There we go. See, that's looking quite nice. So this one is close, but still needs just a little bit more. Really, I need it to go in the other direction, so let's see if we can get that going. See, it's sticking to the counter here just a little bit, so. It's still a little bit there as well, but we can work with it. Okay, we got a little extra flour, I'm just going to brush that off. Give this a quick check. Oops. Oh, well, that looks like it's done, so. I know you can't see this, but I'm uncovering the first one I did, and I'm going to put this one on top. And then cover it back up. So once I get 2 or 3 in the stack, I'll start flipping the stack over, so I'm adding warm ones to the bottom, warm ones to the top, and I'm kind of sandwiching the first one will be kind of sandwiched in the middle. And it'll help keep it warm, it'll help keep it pliable. A little thick right here. Afraid to just go around and touch it, make sure it's all kind of where it needs to be. I know it seems like a lot of work, but it's worth it. They are so good homemade. Okay, one's on. Let's assembly line the next one, and from here I'll probably just speed things up because it's all lather, rinse, repeat. But I do hope you give this a try. I will, of course, come back and show you all the bits and bobs of what went with the meal. Okay, so I have them covered. We'll keep them nice and warm until we're ready to eat them. They're nice and soft. And I'll just keep them covered. The wraps turned out to be 12 inches across, which is awesome. Perfect burrito size. This is the spread. I also had some rice and cheese, obviously. And it made a wonderful burrito. So I highly recommend these wraps. They turned out really great. If you found this video useful, it'd be really nice if you'd like and share so other people can also find this video. I hope you subscribe. I hope you continue following me. And I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.